to the Lord Gord Podcast. This is your host, Lord Gord. I'm giving you information that's factually correct and politically incorrect. And hey, people, what'd you come here for? Bom, 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 bom. Come on, everybody, let's get out on the floor. Bom, 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 bom. So this week, I'm going to talk about a little conversation I had about a week or two ago. One of my buddies, he asked me a question. He said, "Hey Gordon, if there are 5 things about millennials that you'd change, what would you change?" And I gave him an answer really pretty much on the spot. So I'm going to give those answers to you guys now. So the first thing I change about the millennials is the whole welfare state mentality. The mentality that you are entitled to someone else's property, the attitude that the only reason why you don't have what someone else has because they took it from you or they exploited it from you. You know, these destructive ideas that encourage sloth and envy and resentment. I mean, you got, what's that chick's name? Ocasio-Cortez, talking about free housing, free healthcare, free education. Nothing in life is free. And then she talks about how she wants to tax the rich 70%, not knowing that when those tax rates were high, the government collected less revenue than when they lowered it. And 2, not having any kind of moral qualm in her mind or heart to think that, hey, taking 70% of someone's earnings is immoral. You know, enslaving someone for 70% of the year is immoral. These facts never crossed their mind. Free housing, free healthcare. There's no such thing as free. It has to come from somewhere. Free healthcare, free housing. Housing's a right. You know, the fact that you are entitled to get paid a certain amount, not because of your productivity, but because you want it. I mean, these bad ideas have been festering before the millennials for many decades, but has really culminated with the millennials, man. So many just have this attitude of entitlement, especially if they're female. Oh, it's a monster. So there are just so many things, you know. What is it? Funding for higher education. The fact that the state subsidizes so much education is the reason why it's so expensive. Same thing with Medicaid, Medicare. War on poverty, $22 trillion, yet the poverty rate hasn't fallen. And we have, you know, many score more single mothers and illegitimate children than we did back in 1960. So, you know, these kids, people my age, have been brainwashed to think that, you know, there's nothing they can do for themselves, that all advancement in technology and business and finance and living conditions have been due to government, which is absolutely not true. Okay, let's go to number 2. Nonjudgmentalism. I think that nonjudgmentalism is one of the worst ideas known to man, because it is a voluntary impairment of one's logic and reason. It's telling someone, hey, you see those patterns that you notice? Don't pay any attention to them. Don't make any kind of distinctions between what's desirable and undesirable. It's a way to make yourself cattle. It's a way to get picked off by predators. It's a way to be under control. You know, I've talked to some millennials and they'll say these things, oh, you know, so-and-so's this judgmental, like, oh, I'm not judgmental. Like it's a badge of honor. I read in Theodore Dalrymple's Life at the Bottom, you know, this whole ideology of non-judgmentalism is supposed to be desirable, which is a judgment in itself. The fact that you're saying non-judgmentalism is desirable, you're making a judgment that non-judgmentalism is more desirable than people who judge people. And listen, I have more respect for people who judge people than those who don't judge people, even if they're wrong most of the time. The reason being is because even if they're judging people and they're wrong, it shows that they have some kind of code of ethics that they stand by. There's some kind of logical framework that they have in their mind to distinguish desirable and undesirable behavior. You know, people who say, oh, I don't judge this and that, for the most part, either they're just oblivious and their mind is just on cruise control, or they're being disingenuous. You know, just like these people on the left, oh, tolerance, diversity, da, da, da. These are some of the most intolerant people you ever meet. Wear a MAGA hat. Tell them healthcare is not a right. Tell them, you know, the biggest problem in this country is single motherhood. Tell them that black crime is wildly out of proportion, and see how tolerant they are of your opinions. I mean, we know that these colleges all across the country are huge leftist echo chambers. Most of the teachers are leftist. The students get taught one ideological worldview, me being one of them. And if you dare dissent against that opinion, I mean, you face social ostracization. You might get expelled. You might get a bad grade. It's really rough out there. So, non-judgmentalism, yeah, right. They're lying to you. It's a way to control you. It's a way to brainwash you in a left-wing ideology. You know, the funniest thing I know about the funniest thing to me about non-judgmentalism is that people will celebrate aberrant behavior and will demonize good behavior. For example, there's one girl I'd seen. She was a stripper, which is a disgusting profession. It's one that doesn't deserve any kind of respect or admiration. It should be deterred. Most of the people going into that are very damaged. They don't have fathers, so on and so forth. And they praise this woman and said, "Oh, she's getting it on her own." Da da da. And this same person, when hearing about a mother who stays at home with the kid, was criticizing the mom, saying, "Why don't you work? Oh, you can be doing so much more." So, in other words, a woman that chooses to stay at home with her seed and teach and shape their behavior is undesirable. Yet, some two-bit whore is desirable. I mean, that's what you get from non-judgmentalism and leftist ideology in general. It's horrible. It's poison. It's literally ideological poison and societal poison. Um, Stuff like the sexual revolution, free love, where that ideology is practiced, you get chaos, destruction, death, and government dependence. Okay, let's keep moving on. Oh, number 3 is real history. I mean, when you have a lot of these millennials that favor socialism, something about 30-40% have a more favorable view of socialism than capitalism, which goes back to my first point, this whole welfare state mentality. But you also have a large amount of them not knowing who Joseph Stalin is. And those who do know who Joseph Stalin is, a lot of them thinking that George W. Bush killed more people than Joseph Stalin. You mean the guy who had, what was it, 52,000 people dying a month in the height of the Gulag slave camp? You know, the guy who led the forced starvation and genocide and land confiscation of the kulaks. Many millions are dead by his hand through Soviet communism. In fact, that so many millennials don't know that that the New Deal extended the Great Depression many years. The fact that higher tax rates don't lead to higher tax revenues. In fact, they usually lead to less tax revenues than when the tax rates are lower. It's just things like that. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, these government schools have really taught people fake history, skewed history, and most importantly, have made students unable to think. You know, if you question the narrative, people like freak out, they get all upset. Whereas, say, someone comes to me and say, you know, Lord Gord, that whole free market economic thing, that's garbage. You know, socialism's better. It creates more prosperity. It's a better allocator of scarce resources, so on and so forth. You know, if I don't just laugh in the guy's face, I'll say, okay, let's see your evidence. You know, I'll listen, even though I know you're wrong. I'll listen, and then I'll come with my facts and my evidence. But rarely do I ever have conversations with people, and I'm like, no, you can't say that. You can't do this. You can't do that. Let's hear it. Like, I want to hear it. I want to hear your ideas, even if they're bad. I want to hear them. I want to debate them. I want to know how to combat them. I want to know how to beat them. So, yeah, these millennials have to learn real history, man. They really have to know that 100 million people died at the hands of communism in the 20th century. That, you know, Hitler was left wing. He wasn't right wing. That's one of the big lies. That the black family's dysfunction is not a legacy of slavery, and that the war on poverty did not alleviate poverty. In fact, it created more poverty and government dependence. There's things like that, you know. Just understanding that that Arabs enslaved many million more Africans for far longer than white Europeans, and also that as many African slaves that were sold to the Turkish Muslim Ottoman Empire and the Arabs and the whites, more of them were kept in Africa. You know, things like that, you know. Real history. Let's go to point 4, social media. Yes, another one, social media, cell phones in general. Millennials use their phones too much. I did a whole podcast on the ills of social media, how it's basically, how would you say? It's a house of mirrors. It's a masquerade ball. It's fake. It's trickery. The apps are designed to keep showing you stimuli that you like, to keep you on the platform as much as possible so they can use your eyeballs to sell ad dollars and make money because the app is free. And And just everywhere I go, these people are on their phones all the time. I just left a restaurant not too long ago. It's a couple there, and they're both just on their phones. I'm going to tell you this one time and one time only. If I'm with some broad and she's on her phone like that, she's gone. You know, look around. Talk to the people. Notice the environment. The people on social media, they're just making stuff up. It's gobbledygook. It's nonsense. It's not real life. It's not a reflection of reality. It's not something that you should care about. Get off your phone and stop texting. I don't even like texting. I barely text. I call. Or I meet people in person. There's so much in human communication that's missed through text messaging that I just don't like to do it. I don't like being on my phone. Stay off the damn phone. All my girl likes to do is use that Snapchat. That's a song I wrote, by the way. It might never come out, but that's a song I wrote. Live in reality. Talk to the people. Read. Learn things. Instead of looking at what your friend is drinking or something. It's stupid. All right, last point. The music sucks. Oh, yeah. The music sucks. Listen to my very first podcast. Hip-hop's the worst musical idea ever. It sucks. It's horrible. There's no musicians. There's no incentive to be a musician. It destroyed the culture of effort that created great black musicians. James Brown, Kool and the Gang, so on and so forth. I mean, the stuff that they play on the radio is Ariana Grande chick who looks like an underage hooker. You know, Katy Perry, all this garbage. It's tech garbage. I mean, there's no musicianship. Horrible songwriting. It's all cookie cutter, written by the same writers. It's got no soul to it, got no groove to it. I mean, Bruno Mars is an exception to this rule, but it's just horrible. You know, get yourself some time, some Beethoven or something. Get yourself some Barry White. Get yourself some real records. Because if I'm with some girl and she's playing that garbage, I'm either turning it off or I'm out of there. Because I just don't like to incentivize or reward what I view as incompetence and immorality. So yeah, the music's terrible. All that Little Hamburger, Young Murder. I stay as far away from it as possible because if I'm around it too long, my head's just going to explode because it's just antithetical to who I am and my philosophy overall. So those are just some 5 quick points for the millennials out there. I mean, I can go through some more points, but I'm not going to keep you for too long. But that's the Lord Gord Podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe on iTunes. Subscribe on YouTube. Get the Lord Gord Funk album, This Isn't TV. iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. Next week, I'm going to talk about Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates, one of the first wars that the United States had to fight against the Muslims that were enslaving Americans and trying to charge us large ransoms in order to do business. So instead of cucking out like other countries, we grabbed our testicles and went and beat those suckers. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm Lord Gord. I'll talk to you next time.